let me go to your don't list
Mm.
and ask you to talk about number two and then uh, number three.
Well, number two actually was the exact same as which one on your don't list? Number five on the don't list.
Mhm.
And we're obviously on the same page as far as that concerned. Is don't drop the bar out of the top position. Don't bounce the bar off the floor at the bottom. This is exactly the same as Brooks came up with, and I can only reinforce that notion for the very same reasons. Um, you're just it's just not a good idea. These are factors that are under your complete control, and I think it behooves you as a trainer. You'll get more out of it by not doing either of those as you in whatever it is that your training style dictates.
Absolutely. And what about your next one, which I have to admit, I never thought of, but number three on your don't list.
Okay, so this came about because somebody thought it was a good idea. But number three on my don't list is don't use bumper plates on your trap bar, and don't use hexagonal plates or plates that are not round. And for bumper plates, what I've found is that if you're doing shrugs, okay, and all you have is a set of bumper plates, that's not a problem. If you're doing deadlifts, no matter how gently you try to set the bar down, there's going to be some bounce. And if you happen to drop the bar from either the standing position or anything below it, it's going to bounce in some direction, which is totally unpredictable. And you're inside that bar. So you don't want to take the chance of it snapping you in the ankle or lower leg or whatever the case was. It's just not a good idea. And then also on top of that, I guess people like to, it's some kind of ego thing where, a 45-pound plate is 3 inches thick, a bumper plate, and they think it looks really cool to load the bar all the way out to the end. And to me, it's another one of those things. It's just it's not a good idea. And then when it comes to the non-round plates, what's going to happen is if you're trying to if you want to shrug or row or something like that, that's fine. But if you're going to try to deadlift with some of these differently shaped plates, it's going to start to walk. The bar itself is going to start to walk in different directions as you set the bar down, and it's going to hit a corner of a plate. It's another thing. It's just not a good idea. It's stick with the round plates. They're much more predictable in terms of how they function when they're hit the floor. It's going to stay in one place. I know there's people out there that need to hear this. So there you go. There's my 2 cents.
I was visioning someone thinking it would be a good idea to do a trap bar workout with triangular shaped plates.
Man.
For whatever reason, if they had such a thing, but I don't think they do, and I hope I'm never going to use them. Put it that way.
If you did, you'd find out real fast why that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I would say so. So I'm going to go to a do, and it's sort of a don't also, but I think that the partial trap bar deadlift is a very good exercise. And I think a lot of people would do really well to do a standard trap bar deadlift where they're going all the way, plates down, brushing the floor, back up. So you have that range of motion. That's your full range movement. And also, either in the same workout or in a different workout, you do one on Tuesday and one on Friday, for example, if you're training Tuesday, Friday, whatever. Do one week, do the other the next week. Also do a partial movement where you start with the bar right below the knees or maybe right at knee height or right above knee height. It works really well. It's better than a straight bar because you don't have to get the bar working around your knee joint. It lines up perfectly. And so it's really easy to position yourself and get a good strong leg drive for a partial deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to, and so I think it's a great exercise. And if you do that, use blocks. Don't try to wrestle your trap bar into a power rack. It won't really fit. It's incredibly difficult to load the bar, and it just doesn't work. The power rack is not made for a trap bar, and vice versa. And that's why some people like these really long, supersized trap bars, so they can use them for partials in a power rack. Well, okay, I mean, if you have one of those and you like doing that, that's fine. But what I think works better and is a lot easier is using lifting blocks
Mm-hmm.
under the plates for any kind of partial movement with your trap bar. And you don't need anything fancy. I mean, concrete blocks will work just fine. You can make something out of, I'm not a carpenter or woodworker or anything. I mean, I've got like zero skills when it comes to woodworking or just, putting stuff together. But I was able to make something very simple, just a platform out of some 2x8 lumber, and you just put it up to the height that you want, which is going to vary depending on how long your legs are, how tall you are, but get exactly the height that you want. Put some strips on to keep the bar from rolling, and there you are. And it's perfectly safe. It's not going to break. It's not, unless you use balsa wood or something. But I mean, if you're using 2x8s, you're doing a good job putting them together and making sure that they're secure. It's a very safe thing to do. But as I said, concrete blocks also will work just fine. At least they do for my height at 5'9".
Well, and in a related point, one of the common versions of the trap bar or shrug bar or hex bar or whatever you see these days has a second set of handles, second set of raised handles. One of them, and that's fairly typical. And when we brought the trap bar back and I think it was 2007 or 8, our engineers and our manufacturing people, they could do anything. And I did not see the sense in having the second set of handles. I didn't, it was what we brought back is the original design. And I thought that simply added complexity, both in terms of the actual training with the trap bar, and then it added other issues in terms of packing it and shipping it and so on and so forth. I just didn't feel that was necessary. And part of the reason for that I mean, a lot of people like it because the raised handles gives you greater leverage. You can lift another 150 to 100 pounds. And so ego once again gets in the way. But the other related point for my money, which is why the second set of handles was never really important as to my approach, is that if you want to train with different heights, you can absolutely do that. Just go get some boards, from a hardware store, and have them cut them so that maybe they're 1 inch thick and maybe 1 foot by 2 feet, something along those lines. And then you put one on either side for the plates to rest on. And now you have the ability to completely gauge different heights. So, and then, you get one, probably they might even have spare lumber. They'd be willing to do this for you, but you've got now the ability to keep track of a set if you're doing deadlifts at 1 inch off the floor, or 2 inches off the floor, or 3 inches off the floor, and so on and so forth. And you've got the ability to not have to worry about this other design elements and things like that. If you really want to decrease the range of motion to where you're doing a lockout, you can create a situation where you can do that using pieces of these cut plywood, and be able to keep track of your performance at the different heights. And I think that's, plywood's relatively cheap. To me, the extra cost of creating, this added steel and this added feature did not justify this other option, having cut plywood that would allow you to do that. So to me, that's a real simple way to train with different ranges of motion. And the trap bar is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to roll off. So it's something that's, to me, the ability to do this is so simple that it's there if you want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would go back to just saying real quickly that the partial movement is a really good movement. I'll tell you what, it works the heck out of your traps.
Yeah.
Just hammers your traps and upper back. So highly recommended. What, speaking of not highly recommended, let's go back to your don't list. You've got one on number 4 that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised to hear.
Yep, number 4 for me, and it's one of my pet peeves, and it fits into a lot of the things that we've said before, but it's don't use the trap bar for farmers walks.
Mhm.
And it's just another one of those things that because you're in the, encircled with the bar, and trapped in the bar, if somebody's out carrying it around doing farmers walks and you slip on a banana peel, you're wherever the bar goes, you're going too. And I think of, in my mind, all the scenarios of all the bad things that could happen. You're not gonna, if you were using dumbbells or if you're using farmers walk handles, you could push them out of the way as best you could, or at least you'd have some recourse to try to avoid contact with the implement as it's falling to the ground. Not so with the trap bar. I don't want to see some kid dropping it on their leg or something like that. There's plenty of other options for a farmer's walk. We could do an entire show on different options for the farmer's walk. At the University of Michigan, we had some sandbags. They probably only weighed about 40 pounds, but at the end of a workout, you had to carry them from the weight room uh, along the entire length of a football field down to a brick wall at the far end. So and the brick wall was another 10 yards behind the football field, and then there was 10 yards of astroturf in front of the weight room. So all be told, 130, 140 yards each way. But because it was also cloth, you're getting a tremendous grip workout, and if you happen to drop it on your foot, you get a sore foot, not a broken foot. And I believe that was a pointed choice by the strength coaches there to get the advantages with little chance for any injury. And so to me, I just think that if farmer's walk is a great exercise, love it, love the entire philosophy, the toughness, all that stuff that comes with it. Just don't do it with a trap bar.
And if you're wanting to work the heck out of your grip, a standing timed hold in the lockout position will get the job done just as efficiently as walking with the trap bar.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, going back to your earlier point, it's better to do a thick bar hold with the bar in front, with a straight thick bar with the bar in front. Works better because it's always trying to roll out of your hands, which you don't have happening with the trap bar. But still, if you have a heavy weight and you're holding it in the lockout position as a lockout exercise, it works your grip. You don't need to add walking to it. It just doesn't give enough of an extra benefit, if any, to justify the risk of a very bad injury.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and also the trap bar or the hold, just a static hold with a heavy weight, just like you mentioned, that's also one of the core exercises in the bone strength project. So that has its own set of advantages and unique things that go with it. So that's something to consider. Very safe, very controllable, little chance for anything going wrong, and that's a great option. So yeah, that's, to me, I know people do it, and they might say, hey, but I have a trap bar and I don't have any farmer's walk handles. It's just one of those choices that you're gonna make that I don't think is worth it.
Yeah, and to someone who says, I don't have farmer's walk handles, again, we should do a whole show on this. But what you just told about the coach, the Michigan football program, 40-pound sandbags. Okay, they're pretty darn cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And you can load them up and you can go 100, 200, 300 yards, whatever, there and back or just there and drop, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
That's going to give your grip everything your grip wants.
Or do a set of wrist curls and then grab the sandbags, and that'll give you everything you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always ways to get the job done. So that's another show. We've got to save all that for another show. I'm on the brink of like, oh man, I've got all these things I want to talk about. But it's like, no, we'll wait on that. I'm going to jump real quickly to two on my list, the last two on my do list, number 3 and number 4, because I already did number 5.
Yep.
Number 3, consciously engage your lats and your traps when you do a trap bar deadlift. You don't get down in position and drive up without having everything tight, flexed, pulled back. And I would always initiate any kind of a deadlift with an upward motion of a shrug with the traps. So you're down, you're in position, and shrug with traps, lats are tight, and you drive and stand up. And the reason is that way you're engaging all the muscles of the back. You're keeping your spine straight. It's a better biomechanical position. You're not rounding forward. You're not leaning forward. You're not sloping forward. It's the right way to do it. And it engages all of the muscles of the back from the neck to the hips. So that's a simple tip, easy to do. The other thing I'm going to throw out is not only easy to do, it doesn't cost a penny, and it's fun to do. And that is experiment when you do your trap bar training. Experiment with pause reps, experiment with 1.5 reps, experiment with timed holds, lockout holds. John, you mentioned earlier rest pause reps, and you were saying you can do 1 and then do your rest pause and then do another and do your rest pause. You also said you can do 5 reps at a time and rest and then keep going. And you can do this. You can do 1 rep. You can hold it for 5 seconds, 10, 20, 30, put it down, rest, repeat. You can do a 1.5 where you do the rep, lock out, lower halfway down, come back up, lower, and then you can either do consecutive nonstop reps, or you can lower, put it on the floor, stand up, take a breath, do your pause, and do it in rest pause style training. I mean, there's infinite variations, and you can just have tons of fun doing all this. I think the trap bar is a very simple tool designed for, as you said, a couple of very specific exercises, but there are endless variations within those simple exercises. Not in terms of doing them differently, doing them in funky ways, but in terms of the sets and the reps and the application. So I would urge people to be creative. And I think the trap bar is a perfect tool for what I would call common sense creativity. Now, I'm going to bounce it back to you for number 5 on your don't list. And this is another one that I think some people would argue with or be surprised to hear you say. But I've talked with you about this, and I know you have a very strong case for this advice. So what's number 5 on your don't list?
Don't use straps. And I'm fundamentally against straps anyway. I think that they may have a place in a few narrow scenarios, but also with the trap bar, again, you're attached to the bar. So if something goes wrong, you're going to go wherever it goes. And the fact that it's wrapped around you, I just, if something goes wrong, it's going to really go wrong. So I would just say, don't use straps. You say, well, gee whiz, I can lift heavier weights. Well, train your grip, get stronger, so that's not an issue. That's the best advice I can get. I think that's really the best advice from an athletic standpoint. You don't wear straps out on the field. That's just the way things go. So to me, grip training is, and this is something that we can definitely have other shows, at least one more show or other shows on various facets of grip training. That if you find your hands are giving out, then you need to attend that in other ways. I would say that the any advantages to using straps, and that's just me, that's a personal preference, but then also it's grounded in practicality given the nature of being attached to the equipment. You can't bail out, there's nowhere to go. So I just think that that's something that you just don't want to even have that possibility on the table, and you can avoid it very easily by just not going that route.
I would agree with that. And the other thing that I would say, and this is probably more important for older trainees, if you train with straps and therefore use more weight than you would otherwise lift, you run a risk of overtraining your lower back and hips. And if you use a little bit less weight, the weight that you can handle without straps, it actually helps balance the load out in the sense of the right load for your grip is usually the right load for your lower back and hips.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a way not to overtrain. So that would be something that I would urge everybody to think about and keep in mind. And again, the additional benefit for the legs and back has to be balanced against injury risks and overtraining. And when you look at everything, I do the calculus, and in my mind, John, I'm where you are. It's like straps, don't bother.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't need them. You can hold on to a heck of a lot of weight with a trap bar. And if the grip is at all an issue, do the rest pause variations that we're talking about. Your grip is going to be able to handle that, and just doing it alone is going to build the strength.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in 6 to 12 weeks of heavy trap bar training is going to build your grip to handle heavy trap bar training, no doubt about it.
Or do the heavy holds, just like we talked about, 1 or 2
Yeah.
inch holds at the top, and you're gonna build all the strength that you need doing that. And the other thing is and I'm not putting down a straight bar deadlift at all. If people want to do that, that's their own personal preference. I find the trap bar has certain advantages that make it a lot more useful in many situations. And one of those things, I think, that you don't require a mixed grip. If you've hung around powerlifting, competitive powerlifting contests at all levels, you'll see a lot of bicep injuries from taking a mixed grip on a straight bar. A lot of guys also, that necessitates doing extra work with your hands in the opposite position, the opposite mixed position, just to balance things out, and that's negated by trap bar training. So again, if you're a competitive lifter, you got to use a straight bar. There's no way around that. But I just think that if you're not interested in being in a powerlifting contest, the trap bar offers a whole lot of advantages that make a whole lot of sense with what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been going, gosh, about what, 90 minutes or something?
Well over an hour.
Yeah, a long time. So I think we've covered everything on the list. Did you kind of wrapped it up with your last thoughts, but do you have any additional words of wisdom trap bar related?
I think we pretty much covered everything. A lot of what I would advise anyone to do is what I would advise anyone to do with any piece of equipment. Know your gear, know what it can do, know what it can't do, have some goals, and then follow through. Train safely, train progressively, don't take any unnecessary risks. And if you adhere to all that, you can put all your focus on the reps, the sets and the reps, and not have to dodge metaphorical bullets with things that might go wrong in your training.
And what I would say to everybody is, if you have a chance to give serious, old-fashioned, basic common sense trap bar training a try, hitting it with focus and systematic progression, concentration, and really serious effort. No matter what your sets and reps are, no matter what exercises you're doing, you know, give it your all, hit it hard, and the trap bar, you will find, will be an incredibly effective training tool. So to everybody who's listening, thank you for listening. Hit the like button. Leave comments. If you have questions, leave questions. We can address them in future episodes. But go out, grab your trap bar, have fun. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Actually, Brooks, there's one other thing I want to mention.
Shoot.
And that is the trap bar came out in 1985, 1986. So it was around for several years. And throughout that time, the next 20, 25 years, there was never a specific training guide that was written for the trap bar. Until when we brought the trap bar back at, in the late 2000s, one of the things that we did in talking with Al Gerard is he had written some articles which were not published, some training articles. And so when talking to Al, I said, hey, let's put this out there so people can start using this information. And so we came up with a series of training guides, trap bar training guides. I will provide a link in the area, that you can click on and find them. There's 2 of them right now. They're both available on the Amazon Kindle format. But what I did is that I took some articles that Al had written on deadlifting and some programs that he had come up with. I've got some articles by Paul Kelso. The deadlift article that you referenced early on in the show is we made a few modifications for the trap bar, but then that's also included. So it was a compendium of all these various trap bar resources in one place. And so if people are interested in finding out more workout tips or things to try, or reinforcing some of the common sense that we've mentioned, those would be good resources for people to check out.
Absolutely. And again, I'll just conclude by saying that trap bar gives you a heck of a lot of bang for your buck. Try it and see. Take care.
All right, this time, goodbye.